Hotels and motels. Places we go to rest, unwind, or just stay a night and move on. But sometimes, it's in these places where strange things begin. Things no one wants to talk about. Things that wake you at 3 a.m. with the sudden feeling that you're no longer alone. These are real stories, told by people who once stepped into a room they probably should have never stayed in. I stayed at a small hotel during a 3-day business trip. It wasn't fancy, just a 2 or 3 story building with old architecture, long hallways, dim yellow lights, and worn-out carpet underfoot. The outside looked a bit run down, but inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. The front desk always had just one attendant. They spoke softly, rarely making eye contact. Old black and white photos of the town lined the lobby walls. One of them showed the hotel itself, but there was no visible entrance to any laundry room. I was in room 211 on the 2nd floor. The place felt almost empty. I hardly heard any doors opening, and the elevator seemed barely used. Everything was still. On my second night, I asked the receptionist if the hotel offered laundry service. She pointed toward the back stairwell and said, "You can use the laundry room downstairs. Any time, really. But most people don't go there at night." The way she said it, it sounded more like a warning than information. Around 10 p.m., I decided to head down. The stairwell leading to the basement was narrow, faintly musty. The door to the laundry room was old, its paint peeling. When I opened it, a wave of cold air hit me. The room was larger than I expected, dim, with flickering fluorescent lights overhead. 3 washers, 2 dryers, a deep sink, and a folding table in the middle. Plastic chairs were lined up along the wall. As I stepped inside, I noticed someone already there, a man sitting silently in the far corner. He wore a grey hoodie, head bowed, hands clasped between his knees. He didn't move, didn't speak. I gave a slight nod. No response. Maybe he was tired, or just didn't want to talk. I dropped my clothes in a washer, set the cycle, then took a seat across from him and started scrolling on my phone. About 5 minutes passed. When I looked up again, the chair across from me was empty. No footsteps, no sound, no door creak, just gone. I looked around. There was only one door in and out. No side exit, no restrooms. If he left, I would have heard something. But I didn't. I felt a chill creeping in. I moved my clothes to the dryer and stood near the exit, eyes fixed on the room. The dryer hummed steadily. I just wanted it to be over. Then, right before the cycle ended, I heard a faint click from the washer on the far left. It had started on its own. I walked over. The LED screen said, "Washing." I could hear water running. I opened the door. It was empty. No clothes. No water inside. But it was cold. Unnaturally cold. I didn't stick around. The next morning, I told the front desk what happened. The same woman as the night before simply smiled and said, "Oh yeah, that machine acts up sometimes. I'll let maintenance know." She said it quickly. Too quickly. Like she'd heard this before and had the answer ready. I let it go. I wanted to believe it was just a glitch. The next night, it rained lightly. I needed to wash a few more things, so I went back to the basement. Not out of curiosity. I just needed clean clothes. The room was the same, cold, flickering, silent. I used the middle washer this time. Sat down, tried not to think too much, until again, the far left washer made a noise. A faint tapping, like something lightly hit the inside of the drum. I stood up, approached it, opened the lid. Empty, but that same biting cold. I sat back down, heart racing. Then I saw it, reflected in my phone screen. A figure, sitting in the back corner chair. I turned immediately. No one. The chair was empty. No sound, no movement, nothing. But I knew what I saw. I never went back to that room again. The next morning, I passed by the basement stairwell. The metal door was shut tight. Still, I felt eyes staring up from behind it. I don't know what really happened on those nights. No proof, no witnesses, just fragments, small, disjointed moments. But they stuck with me. I don't call it a ghost. Not sure if it was supernatural. All I know is I experienced something I can't explain. A presence. A chill that crept up my spine for no reason. That strange certainty that you're not alone, even when no one else is in sight. I used to think I was a rational person, until I stepped into that laundry room. Some rooms aren't always occupied by just us. This next story comes from a trip I took with my girlfriend back in 2013. We were both still students then, trying to travel cheap. Instead of luxury hotels, we found a place near downtown Los Angeles with good reviews, decent photos, and free Wi-Fi. It was called the Cecil Hotel. I hadn't done much research before booking. The place looked fine in the pictures, and honestly, it fit our budget. My girlfriend, though, was always more sensitive to places than I was. Quiet, observant, and the moment we stepped into the lobby, she gently tugged my arm and whispered, "This place feels off." I laughed it off. Maybe it was just the lighting, that old yellow glow from wall sconces. The whole lobby looked like it hadn't been touched since the 70s. The elevator creaked, and the receptionist smiled politely, but with a blankness that didn't feel entirely real. We were given room 802 on the 8th floor. Small, slightly damp walls, a low ceiling, a window overlooking a noisy back alley. Nothing unusual, at least not at first. The first night passed quietly. We were exhausted, went to bed early. But around 2 a.m. I woke up to a soft rattling noise. It was faint, like someone gently opening and closing a drawer. I opened my eyes and listened. No footsteps, no voices. The room was silent again. I didn't mention it to my girlfriend the next morning. Didn't want to spook her. But on the second night, she was the one who woke me. She nudged me lightly and whispered, "Did you hear that?" I listened. There it was. Soft, scattered tapping on the wall. Irregular, like knuckles brushing wood. We sat up, checked the room. Everything was where it should be. I reached for the room phone to call downstairs. No dial tone. The next morning, as we stepped into the hallway, we saw one of the housekeeping staff, a thin woman in uniform, pushing a cart. My girlfriend asked, "Excuse me? Has anyone ever complained about room 802? The woman paused, looked at both of us for a second, then gave a strange smile. Blank, emotionless. Then she said softly, "If it makes you uncomfortable, you can always switch rooms." And she pushed her cart away. I turned to my girlfriend. She said that like she knew something. She didn't answer. The third night, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. Not from noise, but from the intense feeling that someone was watching us. I didn't dare turn toward the end of the bed. I just lay still, pulling the blanket tighter around me. My feet were freezing. I thought maybe it was the air conditioner, but the vents were quiet and there was no strong draft. And then I felt the blanket being pulled. Slowly, as if someone was testing how much they could take before waking me up. I sat up instantly. Nothing. My girlfriend stirred, startled by my movement. We were both trembling. I checked the door, still locked, bathroom empty. The blanket hung halfway off the bed, my foot already exposed. The next morning, I decided to ask the front desk. A younger man was on shift. I told him we might have heard someone trying to open our door at night. He looked at me for a moment, then replied, "This building's been around a long time. Thin walls. Sometimes sound travels from other rooms." I said, "But we're at the end of the hall. One side is a utility room, the other is empty." He paused, then nodded slowly. "I understand. If you'd like, I can move you to the 10th floor. Brighter rooms, usually quieter." I glanced at my girlfriend. She said quietly, "If you're staying, change rooms." But we only had one night left, and I wanted to know if what I felt was real. I set up my phone to record overnight. Camera pointed toward the bed. At 3 a.m., I woke up from the unmistakable feeling that something had gripped my ankle. Cold. Firm. I didn't look down, just turned on the bedside light. My girlfriend sat up slowly. She looked at my face and said nothing. She just held my hand, and we sat there until morning. Later that day, I watched the recording. For the first half hour, nothing. Then, at minute 34, the blanket at the end of the bed began to move. Slowly, deliberately, like someone was tugging at it from the foot of the bed. Neither of us moved in the video. There was no sound, no shape, just the blanket, sliding down. I deleted the footage, not because I was scared of what it showed, but because I didn't want to bring it back home. We checked out without a word. Since then, I never sleep with my feet outside the blanket. My girlfriend refuses to stay at any hotel for more than 2 nights. And every time she books a room, she always asks, "Has anything ever happened in this room before?" I still don't know what we experienced, but after room 802, I stopped thinking strange sounds in the night were ever just the pipes. The last meal of the shift. I used to work as a temporary night shift staff member at a large hotel on the outskirts of a tourist city. My job was to assist with late night duties, cleaning rooms, tidying up the dining area, and occasionally covering the front desk if needed. The hotel wasn't particularly busy, but it was well known for its European-style architecture and a few rumors. I never paid much attention to them. My first night went by without a hitch. The staff were friendly. The night supervisor was an older man, quiet, but kind. He gave me a few basic tasks and left around midnight. From midnight to 6 a.m., the hotel was practically silent. Just a few guests calling for water or fresh towels. The rest of the time, I spent making rounds through the lobby and cleaning the dining hall. The dining area was located on the ground floor, completely separate from the guest rooms. During the day, it looked beautiful. Warm yellow lights, wooden paneling, leather chairs, and large framed paintings on the walls. But at night, it felt different. On my second night, I went down to the dining room around 1:15 a.m. to collect cups and dishes. I opened the door and nearly dropped my mop. Someone was sitting in the room. A woman. She wore a long dress, her hair loose, seated with her back to me, in the farthest corner near the window. I froze for a few seconds. No sound, just the steady hum of the air conditioning. I called out politely, "Excuse me, ma'am. The dining room is closed." No response. I took a few cautious steps forward and repeated myself. Still nothing. When I got a little closer, The chair she was sitting on slowly turned toward me, but it was empty. No one was there. I stood frozen. I was sure. I had seen her sitting there. I backed away and rushed back to the front desk. I wasn't sure who to tell, or what I had even seen. About 30 minutes later, I gathered my nerves and went back. No one. The chair was pushed neatly under the table. I started wondering if it had been a trick of the eye. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the reflections from the windows were playing games with me. By the fourth night, I was standing in the lobby near the hallway to the dining room when I heard the distinct sound of cutlery tapping on a plate. It was clear, sharp. It was 2 a.m, and I was the only one on duty. I grabbed a flashlight and walked down. The dining room was completely dark. I turned on the lights. Nobody there. But in the far corner, one table had been neatly set. A clean plate, a glass of water, silverware arranged perfectly, like someone was just about to have a meal. I stood there, scanning the room. No movement, no shadows. I considered calling the manager, but I didn't want to sound paranoid. So I quietly cleared the table. One fork, one knife, one glass at a time. And every step I took, I felt like something was watching me from the dark corner behind me. The next morning, I finally asked one of the older staff members, "Do you know if anything weird ever happens in the dining room late at night?" She looked at me for a moment, then replied softly, "There used to be a regular guest. She always asked for that exact table in the corner. She passed away right there. Heart attack. Some of the staff say they still see her sitting there sometimes. At night." I didn't ask any more questions. I didn't quit. I've been working here for over 2 years now. Every once in a while when I walk past the dining room late at night, I still feel that same cold shiver along my spine. It's familiar now, like someone's still sitting there, not angry, not sad, just waiting for a meal. My girlfriend and I rented a small house through a short-term rental platform just for a quick 7-day getaway in the countryside, about a 3-hour drive from the city. It was a 1-story house with a tiled roof at the end of a quiet dirt road. The photos showed a cozy place. Wooden furniture, a small fully equipped kitchen, and a back porch overlooking a sparse forest. The host had great reviews. There was nothing to worry about. We arrived in the late afternoon on the first day. The key was in a lockbox hanging by the front door, just as the host had told us. Everything inside looked just like the pictures, except for one thing. The house was unnaturally quiet, not peaceful. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like someone might be listening. On the first night, I woke up around 2 a.m. because of a soft clicking sound. I thought maybe someone was walking around the living room, but no lights were on. I checked. Nothing. My girlfriend was still asleep. The second day passed normally. But when I went into the bedroom that evening, the light was already on, and I knew for a fact I hadn't been in there all day. I asked my girlfriend, but she said she hadn't touched it either. Her voice was slightly tense. That night, she didn't curl up close to me like usual. She turned her back and said nothing. I figured she just wasn't used to the place yet. On the third night, she was washing dishes when she suddenly froze, dropping a spoon into the sink. I asked her what was wrong. She turned her head toward the kitchen window and whispered, "Did you hear someone laughing?" I listened. Just crickets. She didn't speak for the rest of the evening. When I asked again, she simply said, I'm tired. By day 4, she wasn't sleeping much. Dark circles under her eyes. Her skin looked paler. I invited her to walk in the woods. She refused. I offered to drive into town for groceries. She said she didn't want to leave the house. That evening, I was reading in the living room when I saw her standing at the bedroom door, staring at the doorknob. I asked, "Is everything okay?" She turned to me and said quietly, "Sometimes, it sounds like someone's breathing right outside this door." That's when I set up a camera in the living room, overnight. And, as you already know, it caught a figure gliding past the window around 3 a.m. On the 5th morning, she got up before I did. She sat silently at the dining table, staring out onto the back porch. No coffee, no words. I asked if she wanted to leave early. She just said, "There's something wrong with this house. I don't know what it is, but it's not right." On the 6th night, she woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. and screamed when she saw me standing up, about to check another round of soft knocks on the window. It took me a while to calm her down. She cried, something I rarely saw her do. Through the tears, she said, "I feel like I'm disappearing, like I don't even know who I am anymore." The next morning, we packed our things. We didn't wait for the 7th day. She didn't speak a single word during the entire drive back. And you probably know how it ends. That photo I took of the house before we left. In one of the frames taken from a distance, there's a pale face staring out from the bedroom window. Not clearly male or female, but the eyes were looking directly at me. I never submitted a review for that place, and I've never rented another house in the woods again, especially the kind with no neighbors nearby. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm no longer sure whether what's included in these rentals is something that came with the house, or something that's always been there